So picture this, the United Nations General Assembly, the big stage for global diplomacy. And a pretty powerful speech gets delivered that doesn't just talk about world events. It kind of puts the UN itself on trial. The big question hanging in the air is this organization, which is now 8 decades old, even fit to handle the crises of the 21st century?
Okay, so let's really get into this. We're going to start by looking at the UN's founding promise versus, well, the reality today. Then we'll dive into the speech's diagnosis of the world's problems, a really sharp take on terrorism, the urgent call for reform, and finally, the vision that India, or Bharat, is putting on the table for the future.
So, where does this all start? Well, the speech kicks off by rewinding the clock, taking us all the way back to the very beginning, to that original, incredibly ambitious vision for the United Nations.
I mean, listen to that. That was the mission statement from 80 years ago. The goal wasn't just to stop wars from happening, but to actively build a better world, one of peace and dignity and justice for everyone. A truly noble cause, right?
And then bam, that's the pivot. Right after reminding everyone of this incredible dream, the speech just forces you to take a hard, honest look at where we actually are today. What's so powerful here is just how stark this contrast is. The Charter called for unity, to unite our strength, but the picture the speech paints is one of total division, conflicts raging, open discrimination, and a United Nations that's often just completely gridlocked.
Okay, so after that big picture critique, the speech really starts to zoom in, giving a specific diagnosis of the crisis we're in now and building this really powerful case that the whole system is failing.
Yeah, a sorry picture. That's literally the phrase used to describe the lack of progress on the world's sustainable development goals. Talk about blunt. No mincing words there at all.
And wow, here's the full rundown of the failures laid out in the speech. We're talking slow progress on development goals, something called creative accounting on climate promises, and even open discrimination when it came to getting vaccines during the pandemic. It also hits on economic coercion, tech controls, and threats to shipping lanes, all signs of a global order that's really fracturing.
In this quote, man, it just perfectly captures that feeling of frustration, especially if you're looking at it from the Global South's perspective. The argument is that wealthier countries often took care of themselves first during crises and then turned around to give sanctimonious lectures to everyone else about their duties.
All right, so from all those global problems, the speech then puts one single threat directly under the microscope. A threat, it says, the world has just consistently failed to deal with head-on. This is probably the most pointed, most direct accusation in the whole speech. Without actually naming Pakistan, it points the finger at a neighbor, calling it an epicenter of global terrorism, a problem India says it's been dealing with for decades. So, here's the key takeaway. We're not just talking about a few rogue actors here. The speech argues it's a whole ecosystem where terrorism is allegedly part of state policy, where terrorists are glorified in public, and the money just keeps flowing. The call to action is to put relentless pressure on the entire system that keeps it going. So, after painting this pretty grim picture of a world in crisis, the speech pivots to what it says is the only way forward. The very institutions that were designed to keep world order have to be completely and fundamentally changed. And this really gets to the heart of the problem with the institution itself. The one body that's supposed to find common ground is paralyzed. According to this view, when peace is on the line or development is going off the rails, the UN is often just unable to do anything decisive.
And that brings us to this big idea, reformed multilateralism. The concept is pretty straightforward, but also kind of radical. The world today is just not the world of 1945, so the UN, and especially its Security Council, needs a serious update to reflect new global powers and actually give a voice to more of the world's nations. And it's not just talk, right? The speech actually lays out a roadmap for how to get there. It includes fixing the historical injustice of Africa being underrepresented and expanding both the permanent and non-permanent seats on the Security Council to make it something that truly represents the world it's supposed to serve. Okay, so after calling for the whole world to change, the speech brings it home, laying out the specific role that India, referred to as Bharat, sees for itself in this new world order. So how does it back up this claim for a bigger seat at the table? Well, it points to the numbers. India's already wrapped up more than 600 major development projects in 78 different countries, positioning itself as a major partner for the Global South.
And just look at the sheer range of these contributions. We're talking about being a first responder in disasters, providing medicines and food, fighting pirates and terrorists, and being one of the biggest contributors to UN peacekeeping. The argument is clear: India is already doing the work of a global leader.
So what's the philosophy driving all this? Well, it boils down to three core concepts. Atmanirbhar, which means self-reliance, building up your own strength. Atma Suraksha, which is about securing your own people with zero tolerance for threats. And Atma Vishwas, or self-confidence, fully embracing the role of a major economy and a leading voice for the developing world.
And in the end, it all comes down to this. The speech doesn't finish with a demand. It's more like an appeal for cooperation. The message is simple. In a turbulent world, no one's an island. For the world to be stable, we need a shared purpose, and we need real empathy for what other people are going through.
Which leaves us right here with this really powerful, provocative question that's at the heart of this entire argument. In an age of cyber threats, climate change, and huge shifts in global power, can an institution that was designed for the world after World War II really solve the problems we face today without a fundamental reboot? The speech says no, and that the time for that change is right now.